All right. Welcome to another expert interview. I always start them out the same way. I'm always excited for the conversations. This one just happens to be, again, yesterday was sales. Today we talked about the CRM and optimization and system side of things, which I love to geek out on. I'm also a client. And so it's been super fun to dig in the weeds with Rebecca. And so without further ado, Rebecca, tell us who you are, what you do, and then let's dive in.
Awesome. Yeah. Pleasure to be here, Devin. Just thanks for everything. It's just been so fun being in your world. But I am Rebecca Kallaus, the founder and CEO of Business Done Better. So we have a suite of different offerings that are all back office side of the business. So your CRM system, your fulfillment team, and then on the high side are implementing a full operating system to establish agency virtual businesses as well.
Yes, all of that. And I know you like geek out on this stuff. So I definitely want to get in the weeds. We're going to just tackle all the stuff people want to know. Let's just talk about beliefs when it comes to CRMs. Let's start with the CRM world because I get asked all the time, like, which CRM should I use? How do I use it best? What are some best advice when it comes to CRMs and picking a CRM?
Absolutely. So there's so many different CRMs on the market. I couldn't name a fraction of them if I tried, but there are a whole bunch of there's certain aspects of a CRM system that are consistent throughout. So CRM, for those of you who are new to that terminology, customer relations management system. So it's basically the software that helps you keep track of all your customers and leads. So communication channels are standard for CRM systems, your pipelines, which are the different stages of how somebody moves throughout the business, how they move them from a lead to a customer, all the different nuances there. So those things are all going to be standard for a CRM. And then there's a whole bunch of different features on top of that it just depends on which software you're working with. Every software out there wants to keep you on theirs. So there's other softwares that are other things first, and then they become a CRM second. So Kajabi, for example, is primarily a course builder, but they have certain CRM components. So that's going to be the case with a lot of different things. But I obviously dive in my background with High Level. So High Level is a CRM company that's completely revolutionizing the CRM space. They're in their sixth year of business. I've had the pleasure of working with them for 5.5 years. But the biggest reason of why High Level is different than other CRMs out there is that they have the best all-in-one that I've ever seen of every system out there. They are a CRM as a primary, but they've been able to actually build other things inside their system that take the place of a whole bunch of other systems, Kajabi, ClickFunnels, ActiveCampaign, all of those kinds of things, your school as well. All of those can all be done inside of High Level. However, on top of being the best true all-in-one platform out there, the other big piece of why they're different is that business owners are not designed to work directly with High Level. It's just not how the company is oriented. They're designed to have an agency white label them, and then it's the agency's responsibility to do all of the support, the onboarding, the customization to make sure that the business owner gets properly integrated into the CRM. So agencies have a special niche that they focus on. Ours is with online coaches. We have other outlier clients that work with us as well, but for online coaches, we can get them set up on the whole system and running on day one, because we've already built out everything custom in a way that's very user-friendly, that they can build on it. You can move it around and it's not going to break kind of a stuff to a certain extent. There's always user error and stuff like that, but we have a whole bunch of other support that's built in that's through our company, not through High Level as well. So that's an example of how an agency supports versus High Level Direct.
Love that. Let's talk about finding the right provider and let's stay in the high level realm because it comes up in conversations so often and it feels like there's a high level agency every day. Like, I know obviously, yeah, we use you. I'm very transparent about that and it's been amazing. But what are some things you should ask an agency if you're going to hire them? Like, how do we vet and help people at least get matched up with an agency that's going to provide good support?
For sure. Absolutely love that. So the biggest thing is you want to make sure, like, what kind of support are they providing? Anybody who's providing high level out of the box, I think that's really it's disrespectful and a disservice to business owners because they're just missing out on so much. It's just the same as working with High Level Direct if they're not adding a bunch of things on top of it. High Level is designed for the agency to add so many things in it. So get under the hood. What is the agency actually providing? Support and customization and onboarding are going to be the three things that you want to ask. So once I'm in there, what does it look like? What have you already templatized for me? what kind of support do I have access to? And then how am I getting onboarded so that I'm starting from knowing nothing to actually being able to use the software sufficiently?
Perfect. Talk to me about best practices with your CRM when it comes to setting it up. Like, where do you see people go wrong, or where are some like just good advice for if you're setting your CRM up, do these things?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, to answer that is also a step 4 on your previous question of, can they support you in your niche? So being able to get a CRM set up properly, what does that look like for your industry, for your type of company? What kinds of things do you need? Because different companies, different industries need different things inside their CRM, also as just as a priority. So that's something that, so for us, we focus on building our whole snapshot is an industry term, but it basically means a full software template. So our snapshot on high level through CRM Done Better is focused on centralized around the pipelines. So we had that set up for online coaches, which there's certain things that are standard per most businesses, especially in the virtual space, but on the fulfillment side. So that pipeline specifically is completely geared towards coaches. So that's something that you want an agency who understands your kind of business. So they're putting together solutions that apply specifically to you. If you're a brick and mortar business, our fulfillment pipeline has no relevance. We'd have to build something separate. We can do that, but it's not part of our native snapshot. So you want to be able to work with a company who's going to be able to do that properly, which only happens if they actually know your business. Then as far as what things do you want to have in your CRM, what industry are you in? What things are a priority to you? So from that, you want to understand from a business development side, your user journey, your customer journey, your internal team, what kind of things are they doing manually right now? Where are things falling through the cracks? High level can do just about anything. I always tell all of our clients, if you can think it, you can build it. The problem is that most people can't conceptualize it, and therefore they're never able to build it properly. That's where we come into play, because we have the full business development background of things, so we can actually build that out from a true business mastery that our clients in 5 years could never come up with.
Perfect. You said it was a setup and you went there. And so let's go there. So what I really enjoyed about the conversation that we had early on was you stepping back and going, it depends. And I think that is such a unique answer in the industry, because when we talk about CRM and data storage and project management and some of the other things we'll get into, I think people just default to, here's best practice. And it's like, wait a second, what is your contact's journey through your company? And then what is your team's journey and engagement with that contact? And so talk to me about both sides, because there's two sides to this journey, right? There's the contact customer side, and then there's how your team engages. That's where we start. Like, we actually don't just dive into a CRM. We actually build a plan first, right?
Yeah, for the most part, when it comes to picking a software, that is something that there's very few. I think high level is the right choice for most businesses. There are certain things that are very industry specific, but also there's people that are in those industries that have built high level out in a way that connects to those industry specific softwares, but leveraging high level as the central point. So personally, I stay away from insurance and real estate as an example, because there's very specific industry softwares, but you can also connect it to those. But yeah, so just going back to what is your user journey? Okay, so that comes from like the front end side of your business. What happens how are you reaching out to your clients? How are they learning about you? How are you engaging with them? How are you nurturing them? So for our snapshot, for example, one of the things that we have is a nurture sequence. Okay, so however it is that you're bringing them in, that part can change, but you're still going to have an email nurture sequence most likely. You can also have a nurture sequence on other things. Once they've come in on Facebook or Instagram, for example, then you can nurture them through those DM channels as well. But most people are still going to have an email. So anything that applies across the board, those are the things that we've built in as a template.
Love it. And then talk to me about the team side. So how does your team engage with the information, and how does that dictate some of the changes you make?
Absolutely. So same thing, you want to map out what's your team doing on the internal side. How, when somebody comes into your ecosystem, who's notified, why, and then what are they doing on the back end? So all of those, what's the message that they're sending? Is that something that could be done in an automation, or is it something that should be done in a template? And then on your internal fulfillment side, what notifications do you need when somebody pays an invoice that then needs to trigger something that you're doing on your task management side? So you want to be able to map that out first, So process mapping is a huge thing. That is something that we can do as part of our services, but I always encourage people to be able to do that. I am not a visual map person. I'm like an outline bullet point person, or like a talk it out loud to my team and have somebody else process map it. But having somebody with that skill set to actually lay that out in a visual way that anybody on your team can follow, and then build out those automations and processes inside of high level or any other systems that you're connecting to it, is a really important next step.
Love that. We could go forever just on CRMs, but I want to hit some of these other topics. Let's talk about data storage, because I geek out here too. And there's a formula in a system we follow, but I find a lot of people don't have this. Like, data is just stored everywhere in whatever way. Talk to me about storing your digital data. What are you seeing as like the biggest problems? And let's just go down that road.
Oh, geez. Okay. That's a rabbit hole question that can go in so many different directions. And I might need a little bit more direction as far as what category of data, because there's data storage and then there's files. So those are two different things. Like we were just talking, there was a bunch of Facebook groups, for example, that got taken down the other day, and the legit ones got back up. But it's okay, that's data storage. Like your audience, where they are, like, I don't even know how you have a safety net for them. That's like a total stress point for me. But there's only so much, you have to rely on tools to some degree. Even big things, AWS, Amazon storage went down the other day. Everything was out. A whole bunch of platforms. AWS is one of the biggest things out there that most things are relying on. That goes down. We're just all screwed for a handful of hours until they figure that. And that happened, I think, a week ago. So there's some things you just can't control, but you have to rely on certain big companies for tech like that, like Google, for example. So when it comes to file storage specifically, we use Google Drive for everything. There's so many different aspects. So guide me on where you want me to go with that, because I can go in 8 different directions there.
So let's go file storage. Let's talk about what's the best
Organization.
practice. For organizing, because I think that so often it ends up in your download folder, and your download folder becomes this like chaotic mess. This might be me speaking to myself right now. And at some point, that data or those files have to end up inside of your platform, whether it's a Dropbox or a Google Drive or whatever you're using, OneDrive. But what's the organization? Like, how do you teach people to organize their files?
Sure. Yeah. So that's something that we run through with our Ops Done Better offer. So that's where we're like a 3-month implementation of actually building out an operating system with virtual agency style companies. And because there's just so much behind that door, we've gone down that road. So a little bit of background about us. I've had our current business with this team for 2.5 years. We're a team of just over 20 at this point. And everything that we do for our operations offer is all things that we've done internally. We've now created a proprietary operating system called the 5-engine operating system. We can dig into that later, but the organizing your files is a part of exactly that. Because when you're just one person, okay, you can organize it however you want. Ideally, even if you're one person, you should still have an organizing system. But once you start adding even just one more person to the mix, then you have that other person. They're like, Devin, where's the thing? You're like, it's right there. They're like, what do you mean it's right there? It's not labeled. Where is it? It's in your, it's in my download. Oh, it's on my computer. Sorry, bro. That just doesn't work anymore. And then you start adding multiple teams, departments, managers, and then it's just like, you have to have a real system behind everything. So we use Google's shared drive. So everything is in the shared drive. So then I can take team members on and off at the highest level, and then they're shared onto everything in the drive. Because that was also something that it was like, okay, how do I give access to the thing? And that's a whole mess. And then you get to naming and your file structure, and that's a whole other thing. So I don't know how to go into that on like this kind of a format. I could talk about that for so long. I will put together a workshop on that because it is so important. It's something that comes up, and just when you think you've organized certain things, like Google Drive, for example, then you have, how do you organize all of your media files and your logos and your Zoom backgrounds and your recordings for your Zoom calls, and there's just all your marketing files. There's so many different aspects of organizing things. How are you labeling your tasks in your project management system? So all that is part of your operating system. So we do actually have a solution for that, but there's so much behind that door, is the answer short.
No, I think you hit some things that I want people to really hear when it comes to file storage is when you're a party of one, it's not as bad because it's like the pile of clothes on your dresser, like you know where something is. But as soon as you invite a team member, a partner, an outsourced vendor, maybe even your accountant, attorney, or a marketing professional, and now you need to share stuff, like you need to share marketing assets, you need to share accounting and business files, you need to share, but like the accounting and business files, you don't want to share that with the team member down the road because they don't need that. And so I think how you store at the high level is interesting, like how you're managing the upper folders, thinking through sharing and like what levels of sharing do I want and going to need access. I think that's something people need to consider. And then I think having a standard titling practice, we don't need to get in the weeds there, but like even if for you, whatever makes sense, as long as it's standard and everywhere, at least I could do a search and find the thing. But I think that I want people to hear it's really important as you scale your team to have files managed properly.
I'll share two other just takeaways on that. So one, I do have a separate shared drive that's on the exec level where we do for hiring job, like when I'm interviewing new team members and then quarterly reviews, all of those are on a separate shared drive that the team does not have access to, only the executive team does. And then one other separate just a takeaway that's just like an easy just thing to think about is, this doesn't necessarily apply to every company out there, but I feel like this is a decent amount of companies. You have different aspects of your brand. So for us, we have Business Done Better, Team Done Better, CRM, Ops, and Founders on Fire is our podcast, the coaching games. We have a handful of different aspects of our brand. And so we have in our Google Drive programs, and then we have a very specific format for that. For our marketing team, for example, we have things that are like marketing in a general sense that are in the marketing department. But any marketing files that are program specific are inside the program folder, not a marketing department folder. So that way, people who are not the marketing team can come in and they can still find assets as well. We have another folder inside the program file for approved media. So any video, graphics, etc., it's very easy for anyone who's not the marketing department to come in and find any assets they're looking for, as well as the program files.
Love it. All right, let's shift gears again. And I think people are going to catch a theme here that there's so much that you guys do. The next thing I want to talk about is project management. And so this is shifting away from contact management, right? Which is where we started, to now project management, which I think isn't a fit for everyone. I don't think every company needs it if you're just a task management small solopreneur. But I think as soon as you're onboarding customers and serving them over a period of time, you're going to need to manage projects. So talk to me about like, when do we actually need a project management platform? And let's start there.
Absolutely. So when you are a solopreneur, you do not need a project management tool. So something like, that's why high level is so great, because you do have task management in there, especially as it pertains to contacts and a little bit past that. So you as a solopreneur can easily keep track of things in there. Or before I had a team, I had a whole system. I'm great with technology, but I actually am very tactile as well. So I actually had a paper day planner and stuff like that when it was just me. That does not work as soon as you bring on one more team member. But that is all you need when you are just starting. Do not pay for any other tools. Once you start growing your team, there are a bunch of project management tools out there as well. I know Monday is a common one, Devin, that we were just talking about. There's a handful of other ones. I think Monday is very, very simple. But when it comes to that, the first question you want to ask is, where are you going as a company? So that's something that I love to work with early stage business owners who are wanting to scale, because I like to help them get into the right tools that they want to grow into versus like they get all their systems set up in something that they're going to outgrow and then they're going to have to start it all over essentially. So while Monday is a great and user-friendly tool to start with, it's something that if you're really going to be, there's certain elements that you cannot do in Monday. So there is probably going to be a graduation threshold there that you'll cross, and then you'll basically have to start all over, which is extremely arduous and derails your business throughout that process. So we use ClickUp for our project management tool. It's a unicorn company. They've been around for a long time, and it's like high level where you can do everything with it, which to the average person can be very overwhelming. So that's something that we're, as expert as we are in high level, we're top 10% of power users in ClickUp as well. And we've now put together processes and templates that we can just pass on to our clients to just have them start not from scratch, just like we do in CRM Done Better, where we can already have an operating system that we know works with templates that we know work for all these kinds of businesses. So then it's something that you don't have to learn all the different angles of it, because it can be overwhelming when you're just have this kind of endless whiteboard kind of a concept. And it's okay, like, where do I begin? Because it's even more flexible than a CRM on the project management, especially with ClickUp. But you want to, again, just think through at the end in mind for everything in your business. Where am I going and what is the objective that I'm looking to solve? And then how do I solve it? Or if I don't know, who can help me to answer that question? That's where I would start.
I love looking in the future. I know I've seen companies have to make that jump CRM wise and project management wise multiple times. And so I think that is something I really want to highlight as advice there is when you're making a software decision, you're going to make it based on what's in front of you today. That's how most people react and think through it. But I think you really need to step back and look out 3-5 years and figure out, is your company dynamic going to change? Are you going to be out of an office or in an office? How many team members? Who needs access? How many projects? What scalability? What's the touch points? Like all those things matter.
Yeah. And you're not going to know all those things when you're first introducing those kinds of tools, but you want to think just from a general perspective. So I'll use my own use case as an example. So 2.5 years ago, I was looking at all the project management tools out there, and there were certain elements of ClickUp that I was like, ClickUp is definitely the way to go. I don't know where to start. I don't know where we're going to go as a company. There's so many different variables that are unknowns at the moment, but ClickUp can do so many things that I know that there's a very low probability of me outgrowing them or of anything happening to ClickUp. So just a quick tangent just on software tools in general for your business. That's also something that I always make sure to impart on business owners, is that you want to make sure that you're looking at the behind the scenes of the company of the software. Who are they? How many funding rounds have they had? How long have they been in business? How big is their team size? Because if the software company is too small, guess what? One, you don't know if they're going to go under as a business. Two, they may not be able to keep up with how fast technology and AI, for example, are changing with the times. Three, how fast can they fix bug fixes? And can they really support new development of stuff, of feature requests that you're looking for? How well do they listen to their customer base? So all of these things are really important to think through when you're choosing the tech stack for your company, especially with core softwares like your CRM and project management tool. So that's why High Level is not quite a unicorn. They're on a trajectory where that's still closely a possibility. ClickUp is an official unicorn. For those people who don't know what that term is, it means they've hit $1 billion in valuation in under 7 years. So there's a very small amount of companies across the world that have hit that metric. So it's a very prestigious, to say that you're a unicorn company is a big deal. It means that you're probably not going anywhere anytime soon. But yeah.
I like that perspective that you talked about the company too, because I see a lot. And over the years, I've seen, I don't even know, a couple dozen different CRMs, project management platforms that are trying to solve a problem for themselves. And so they built a really cool piece of tech, which is great for their problem, but that's not their core business. And so like they then start onboarding it. And then it's, wait a second, like, again, how do you pivot? How do you service that? How do you integrate AI? Or is it just going to be a legacy product that just solves their problem? And it's really an internal thing that they shouldn't have made external. Like those are all good questions to ask.
Another thing is, how well does it integrate to the rest of your tech stack? So I always want to make sure, okay, how friendly is it to integrate to everything else? So ClickUp, High Level, like those are core infrastructure parts of our tech stack. Both of those are very integration friendly, especially High Level is one of the best on that. Just how they've built out their whole software. It is literally designed for people to plug in and build custom solutions on top of High Level, is like a large part of their just company structure. So that's really huge. ClickUp has a bunch of integrations as well. So you can do a whole bunch of things natively within those platforms that actually connect and talk to each other. And we use Slack for our communication tool. So we have things that bounce from High Level into Slack, from Slack into ClickUp, and vice versa, both directions. Also, I have Fathom is our AI recorder. So that's recording everything right now. We have automations that bounce. I have a call here. It goes into Slack and then takes all the tasks and then assigns it to people inside of ClickUp. So it's literally, I say things out loud on a call and magic happens in our company. So the only way to do that is to make sure that everything is talking to each other properly.
Love it. Let's talk about outsource staff, because what I want people to hear too is this is probably not a solo journey. making these decisions for your company when this is not your area of expertise, you're probably going to fail. Like, I don't want to tell you 100% you are, but you're definitely not going to optimize these things fully because you have no clue what the capacity is. And so why should they talk to someone else and get an outside perspective? Let's just start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are amazing people out there who can do so many things. But if you're only one person, you just can't wear all the hats. So when you're a solopreneur, you're wearing, saying goes, like 17 hats or whatever it is. And there comes a point where then you have to say, okay, where are my actual strengths? Is it on the fulfillment side? Is it on the like organization side? Is it on sales, marketing? Like, where are your actual strengths as a founder? And then you want to be hiring for people that are going to fill in the gaps that are not your biggest strengths. That's a whole, hiring in itself is a whole skill set that a lot of people don't have. Managing a team is a different skill, related but different skill set that also most people don't have. And then you're bringing somebody into your business, into your house. Well, then you have to trust them with your business, with your IP, and then you have to communicate effectively what to do, how to get things done. And then it just starts this whole spiral of things that most people get stressed out about and honestly aren't very good at. And that's where a lot of things start to unravel being a business owner. So that's something that you want to make the decision, who do I need to hire in-house versus a contractor versus a consultant versus a team, an outsourced team. So our team done better side of our business, that's exactly why we exist on that arm. We can support solopreneurs all the way up to large companies, supplementing full-time hires, any part-time or full-time hires on the admin and creative side, both in a way that you can trust that we're able to do the job. You can trust with your IP. So there's all sorts of different layers on there. So I guess, Devin, you can guide me on where you want me to go from there since you work with our team.
Yeah, for sure. So I think what I find super unique in that I've had a lot of outsourced vendor partners and a lot of internal team members. I hope that by now people are starting to see, wait a second, Rebecca's covered like a lot of ground. We've talked about CRMs, talked about files and data. We've talked about projects. We've talked about teams now. We haven't even got into the creative side, the social side, the other stuff. There's so many more pieces. But what I find really interesting about your team is the ability to see the big picture and help me not dig myself off, right? Hey, wait a second. Like, don't make that decision. You make that decision, this thing has to happen. So unsubscribes were a good example that we've been troubleshooting is I want to use the system for automation, but we need to create an unsubscribe funnel, but we also need that unsubscribe funnel to not unsubscribe them from one-to-one emails. And then your team came back with this brilliant, like, unsubscribe model that solves the problem because you understand the compliance side, which so that's good because I need to not create a fire for myself. But then you're able to listen to the business and like, oh, we see what you're trying to do. Let's solve it. And so I want people just to really hear that when you're finding a partner, sometimes a solo consultant is great, depending on what you're trying to solve and what that looks like. When you're finding a company, it could be the same thing. I would highly recommend leaning in and having a conversation with Rebecca's team because they have so much visibility to all of these areas.
Yeah, no, you brought up so many good points there. And just to touch on one quick tangent back on the CRM side, that's also the piece with high level is that the agency is responsible for the compliant component as well. That's something that email and phone compliance, it's been for the last 2 years, it's averaged having some sort of updates every quarter. So there's constantly new things that the agency needs to be up to speed on to be able to properly support the clients. So we always stay up to date on all of that, getting phone registration, A2P, all that stuff. But on the email side, there's so many regulatory things that the business owner doesn't usually know because you're busy running your business. That's not what you're supposed to be focused on. So we do handle all that for our clients as well. And the email component, the unsubscribe piece, that's a part of our snapshot. So you came in from a different angle without our snapshot. So we were able to take components of that and then adjust things per exactly your needs. But just going back to our team, so thank you for all of those accolades. I really do try to train my team that way where we like to think ahead of the client. We listen to what the client needs, but to always be thinking ahead. So I tell my team, if the client is saying something, a better way to do something, acknowledge what they said, but then say, hey, we could also do it this way. Here's my feedback and opinion on that. and then let the client choose how they want to proceed from there. If a client wants to override the compliance stuff, that's fine. We're going to give you the warning, and then good luck, God bless. It's on you. We did our part. We're happy to do it however you want, but we're going to warn you of that blowback before it happens.
Love it. Talk to me about a case study. This is something I saw Gary put in the chat, and so I think it's a great thing. Let's talk business coach specific. Talk to me about how they came in, what the mess looked like, what their biggest problem was, and then where you've been able to move them to through all of the different stuff you want.
Yeah, let's see. So many different examples. There's one client who came to us. I like telling her story because when she first came to us, all she wanted was a website, and she didn't want to hear anything about the CRM. She was like, nope, I suck at tech. I don't want to touch it. Nah, 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 nah. And she had somebody charge her an outrageous amount of money for, honestly, I've heard so many horror stories with websites. She charged her like $7,000 for a very basic website on WordPress, which I don't recommend WordPress for. There are exceptions, but most of the time I don't recommend it because it just adds so many other layers that most business owners just don't need to be messing with. You do have to have somebody constantly managing your WordPress. Otherwise, it's opening up to security holes if there's not constant management, which is only a WordPress, not every other system. So she had that. It wasn't even her branding. It was like, my father has a finance company, and it was the same hex codes, the same colors as my father's finance company. And she's a coach in the med spa industry. And I was like, that doesn't even make sense. And we also have radical transparency as one of our core values. So I almost didn't say certain things, but then I ended up telling her, and I was like, I don't know if I should tell you because I feel really bad that you got screwed over, but here's what actually happened, and here's how to avoid that happening to you again. And so we were able to come in, and now this is a year and a half later, we handle pretty much her entire business. She now has a completely different website, logo, branding. She then, after she trusted us to do the Team Done Better side of our business and us to do everything for her, she was like, okay, you're trustworthy. I get it. Talk to me about the CRM. She's like, let me give it a try. So she got into it, and she's like, I feel so much, you've solved all of my fears about technology. This is actually not nearly as hard as I thought. I'm now excited about it. I'm empowered. I'm able to do it myself. But your team makes it so much easier for me. So I'd rather just have them do it. But I like being able to do it myself. So we like to give clients that choice where we're going to empower the client to do whatever it is they want to be doing on their end. But then we have all of the support and tools and everything that they need if they want us to do it for them as well, done with you, done for you. So whatever it is that they need. But so for her, we've honestly changed her entire life. Like, she credits us to changing her whole life. She like pivoted her whole business and life direction based on some of the work that we were doing. And it's now just completely exploded. She's just having such a more fulfilled career because we totally pivoted the whole way that she was doing her business. And that was just about a year and a half later.
I love that. So came in for a website.
She's just a solopreneur still because she's able to just use us for everything.
That's what I was going to say. Came in for a website, has everything. And then what she found is a capacity partner as well. And I think that's where we didn't really talk about the executive assistants or virtual assistant world, but that's a hot thing right now, right? Like, have all that admin stuff take off your plate. There's a system of best practices there. And that's something you fulfill as well. And so I think that's an amazing case study to like, look, just lean in. Like, we can support that growth, and you just be a rock star at the thing you do and stop worrying about all this other stuff.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Love it. Gary, this is a fun question. I do want to hear your answer to this one. Where do you see CRMs going in the future? What do you think's coming next? What's going to change in that one?
Oh man, AI is obviously just taking over everything. So there's so many different things. I think more and more integration with AI is just the first thing that comes to mind with AI agents specifically. So high level they call it AI employee. So that's just a small component of it right now that you can have AI make and receive phone calls, which I have certain opinions about that, but I like to use it for as far as like an appointment setter and like a front desk person. So replacing a front desk person, your CRM and AI can do all of that now. But what I was talking about earlier, where I can just say something on a recording, and then that triggers a whole sequence of different things that gets passed through an AI agent that then throws in certain messages, assigns tasks to certain team members based on certain qualifying criteria. They can see their role description and also stuff that is pulling from our operating system, where I just say something and then it literally things just get done before we even get off the call, kind of a thing. and your CRM should be the hub of a lot of that. So just all different aspects of AI, I think is the biggest thing. Where that could lead, oh geez, I don't know. That's a whole rabbit hole.
I think the thing for people to think about and I hear all the time is AI's there. What do we do with it? And the reality is it's going to impact your business and you get to choose how it impacts it, right? So either you're going to integrate, optimize, systematize, and get on board and figure out that it can streamline and save you a lot of time, or your competitors are going to do it and you're going to regret it later. So pick.
One of the things that I tell my team is use AI all the time. Use it for everything possible. Don't make me feel like it's AI. Don't let me know that it's AI. I know because I know my team, they're using AI, but don't let me know it based on the work that you're producing.
Love that. Talk to me about, let's come back to the executive assistant thing. I think we should spend a second there. And I know you've hired a lot and been around, and I'm sure there's horror stories and mistakes. Like, are there some just best practices for finding the right executive or virtual assistant?
Oh man. I think that this is going to be a topic that I will continue to come back on for years to come. I had a conversation with somebody, I think it was a couple years ago now, and I do have a decent background of hiring. How many people I've hired over the years, but I do have very good track record. Not perfect. I don't know, anybody cannot make mistakes in hiring. I feel like it's absolutely inevitable. I for sure have mine as well, some even this year, but I do have a very good track record overall. Our team is absolutely incredible. I'm obsessed with my team. They're all rock stars. And I had somebody asking me, like, so what's your secret? What's your magic sauce? What do you look for? Like, how do you put that in a software, in a system? And I'm just like, there's certain things that I can answer analytically. Part of it's intuition, divine presentation in front of me, circumstance. It's that there's certain variables. My heart goes out to people who have brick and mortar businesses that have to hire in a geographical radius. Like that one, I don't pretend to have any answers on that. If you're limited to your geography, God bless you. That's a tough one. I like to have the whole world as where I can hire from. I have certain countries that I like to and not to hire from based on certain cultural things. For example, I don't hire from the Philippines. I do have one person on my team from the Philippines. He will remain the only person because it's a cultural thing that they're very dutiful. They're very good at following directives. You said specifically an executive assistant. Okay. So that's somebody that you want them to be proactive and innovative. They're always thinking 19 steps ahead. There's amazing people in the Filipino culture. I do have one of them on my team. He's the exception, not the rule though. As an average, you need to be knowing the culture and the type of person that you want to bring on. If you want somebody who's they're very good at following SOPs and you want to do very little management and they're just following the same thing over and over again, absolutely. Philippines is a great company culture to hire from, but I hire from either the US and Latin America is where most of my team is from. And my team, they're constantly having internal conversations. How do we optimize this? Here's the pain point that us internally are having. How are we going to solve it? They come to me with a proposal. They say, here's the problem that we identified. Here's our proposal for how to fix it. I say, here's these tweaks. Here's the things that you missed thinking through. Make these adjustments, run it, go. So a lot of my team has been with me for less than a year, and that's the experience that I have. So for those kinds of team members, yeah, so I have a staffing arm that I work with. That's how I'm able to bring on amazing team members in a short period of time. We had one team member that we hired for that my staffing arm told me they went through 265 resumes of an already pre-vetted pool to find me that one person. It's a full-time thing when you're trying to hire at a top-tier caliber. That's just on the hiring perspective. And then when you get to the retention side of things, who are you as a leader, as a company to attract and keep top talent? That's something that I think a lot of people forget to think through. They're like, I want the best kind of a person. Are you willing to pay for it? And are you willing to create the environment that person will enjoy staying at and feel fulfilled? So I don't know if that exactly is your question.
There's lots to unpack. And I think the geography one, I think is some people need to hear. Often with hiring, like we are in a virtual world now. Latin America is, I would probably the fastest growing outsourced staffing period. I'm seeing that trend for sure. And I think that's a cultural thing that's aligning very well and a time zone thing that aligns very well too. But I think people need to take away the fact that, look, if you're doing administrative work, and I was just at a mastermind, there were 17, 16 people in the room. And we talked about this task, right? I want you to spend 14 days tracking everything you do every day in a spreadsheet from start to finish. And then I want to get rid of the BS. Let's get rid of the stuff that actually is not growing revenue or your area of expertise, like the thing that you're blessed to do. Everything else has got to go. And then they're like, what about the money? Well, if you don't get it off your plate, there is no more money because you're going to hit capacity. And so I think that expanding geography allows you to leverage better pay structures, better talent pools, get people involved. But again, just like everything else we've talked about, you're not an expert at this. Like very few people are an expert at writing job descriptions, where to post them, how to screen them, how to interview, how to qualify, how to onboard, when do I onboard? Are they an outsourced contractor? Are they an employee? Like I'm exhausted already. Don't feel the need to have to be the solo hero in any of the stuff we've talked about. Be brilliant at generating revenue for your company and be brilliant at fulfilling the thing that you're great at. And everything else, bring in people to be experts at, because guess what? You'll make more money. Like, I know you might look at the sticker shock and be like, oh, I can't afford it. Like, as soon as you get it off your plate, you'll have capacity. So I'm going to get off my pedestal. But I had to rant there because when I was that's my group, I'm like, guys, like, there's so much here. Like, you've got to get it off your freaking plate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a good segue, if you don't mind, to just introduce the operating system that I've actually now created. So that's something that the operating system is a whole nebulous thing for most business owners of any stage, really. But it's basically a framework and set of processes of how you run your business to align your team and goals. So it's not software, but it does include how you use your optimal tech stack. So there's a lot of different operating systems out there. They're EOS, Clockwork, Empire. So there's a bunch of things out there, but from my experience of a handful of different operating systems, they all seem like they solve certain things in this corner and certain things in this corner, and these might align, but these don't really, but they're not built for every type of business at every size. And I was like, there's got to be something that it has more consistency throughout different sizes and industries of business. So I really wanted to create an operating system that was scalable from solopreneur to enterprise and industry agnostic. And so that was something that I just have the spine of it right now, but it's something that we've been using internally as our team. And once I introduced that was instant clarity to my whole team. So I call it the 5-engine operating system. So every business, no matter what size or industry, you have 5 engines to your business: revenue, brand, client success, operations, and leadership. No matter how many departments you have, everything falls under one of those engines. Each engine also has 5 drivers that drive the success of that engine. So there's 5 specific ones in each engine. And that's something that every single component of your business, doesn't matter size or industry, wraps up into those drivers, into those engines. So when I explained that to my team, there's just a handful of light bulbs that clicked, including to me as a founder. So that was something that I'm great on the back end side of business. But the front end side, sales and marketing, that's just been the bane of my existence. And so I always knew that we're strong operationally. Sales and marketing has been hard. It's been hard to lift the front end side. But when I thought about it from this perspective, so you have your 5 engines. As a solopreneur, you want to think through what engine are you the strongest at? And you want to always be running the leadership engine until you grow to have a CEO to replace you. So you own the leadership engine, and what other one are your strengths and which ones are your weaknesses? So you want to have each team member to be clear on what engine those seats are in, and you want to have a leader for each of those engines as well. 1 person per engine, okay? You want to have 4 other leaders of those other engines. You own leadership, so the other 4, as soon as possible as a business. Even if it's just 5 of you, then you have something that's actually running all 5 engines of your business. I have a great engine lead in operations and in client success, and I have a great fulfillment team on the brand engine side. So your marketing department lives under brand engine, but we didn't even have a seat. I didn't have a lead in the brand engine, and I didn't have any seats on the revenue engine. And I was like, gee, no wonder we're stuck on that side of the business. So to be able to see it in that perspective, it really provided a lot more clarity on things. So just even if you're not great at hiring, you don't know how to run and structure a team, org chart is overwhelming and all that. If you think about it from that perspective, it's a lot easier to identify where are my holes in my hiring chart. So hopefully that helps.
Mm, that's so fun. Yeah, talking about the five pillars of business, they align very close. And I think people need to step back and look at the big picture. And I love that you said, oh, and that leadership one, because that's driving it. But then bringing the right partners, team, or things to fulfill the rest, and then getting visibility to that. It was your aha moment of, wait a second, but who's over here? Oh, no one. Weird, right? Wonder why it's not performing. So I'm excited for you to lean into that more. I know this is something that you're really excited about and scaling right now. So we're probably going to end up with an expert interview part 2 just on the operation system, which is going to be great. What didn't we talk about that you want people to hear? Is there some tip, a trick, a best practice, something we didn't cover?
One of the things that part of our operating system is having team members lean into their superpowers. So in order to do that is identifying what your superpowers really are, both you as a founder and other team members. I think early stage business owners too often, they try to have people do all the things. Nobody's good at all the things, but you want to really identify what are their superpowers and what are the things that they're still capable of. So one of the tools that I have is a whole matrix. It's based on something from Dan Sullivan, but I've taken it past that a few levels. I call it the fuel versus friction matrix to identify what those superpowers really are for people. But just really think through and try to have people living in their superpower as much as possible, not spreading them too thin. So oftentimes people complain about certain people on their team and but is it your process? Is it the person? Or is it your expectations of them? Having them live in their superpower, they feel more fulfilled. They're going to be able to move your business further, move the needle. But if you start adding all these other things that aren't their superpower, they're going to look like a poor performing team member. So there's the concept of A, B, C players. An A player is somebody who goes above and beyond. They're always like down for anything. They're good. They're always like, they're raising the bar around them everywhere that they go. C player is the opposite. They're bringing people down. They complain. They don't take personal radical responsibility, ownership on things. You can't rely. They drop the ball. All sorts of things in the negative side. Your B players are in between, and they can appear higher or lower based on the environment that they're in. It's okay to have Bs. You're always going to have Bs, but you want to have as many As as possible so that you can raise those Bs up to As, and you want to get rid of the Cs as much as possible. A lot of times people are like, oh, they have great skill sets, but they are draining the company culture. Bye. Sorry. No. If they don't fit your core values and your company culture, then they're a C, and they're going to be bringing the rest of your team down. And those amazing A's that you have, they're going to want to leave. So just really thinking through from that perspective. Obviously, I love growing a team. So from team perspective, that's the best advice I would give.
Love it. How can people connect with you? What's the best way to reach out and get into Rebecca's world?
Absolutely. So businessdonebetter.co. That's going to be where you're going to find all of our Done Better brands. You can find me on LinkedIn, but Rebecca@teamdonebetter.com is a direct email to me.
Awesome. If you guys are watching the replay, all those links will be below. Rebecca, thank you for your time, your knowledge. I know we covered everything and anything, and there's so much we didn't even get a chance to talk about, but thank you so much for your time and for sharing your wisdom with us.
Absolute pleasure, Devin. Thanks.